I'm Marjorie Payne.
Marjorie Payne. And you were a teacher at Lincoln School.
Right.
And
I taught second grade and third grade. They were combined.
They were combined. So I was under the
Right.
impression...
In one room.
In one room. I was under the impression it was first and second and third. But you
Yes.
taught, okay.
But I taught two grades in one room
Okay.
at one time.
And when was that?
I started teaching in 1945.
Okay.
And I taught until the Lincoln School was closed in 1951.
Okay. And so you taught there about 6 years.
Well, actually it was 5 years. From
okay.
45, 46 was 1 year. And then 46, 47 was another year, 47, 48, 49, and 50, and then 50, 51, and it was closed at that time. And then the children were sent down to Washington School.
How was your career afterwards? Did you go to another school to teach?
Yes, well, at that time, I lived in Bidwell, and I substituted there because there was a colored school there, colored school or black school now we call it.
The Consolidated School in Bidwell, was that it?
Yes,
Okay.
colored school, and they had two rooms, but there had, at that time, there was first, second, and third grade in one room, fourth, fifth, and sixth in the other grade, in the other room. So there were two rooms there, and I substituted there for 2 years. And then at that time, I was interviewed in Lawrence County. They needed a teacher, and I went there in 45, 46, about 47, 1947, and I taught first grade there.
Okay.
But I had one grade, first grade, and I had 49 first graders. And I said, I told everybody that if I had one more student, it makes 50, I was going to quit. I had no kindergarten, there was no kindergarten, and I had to start the children out without a kindergarten. And that was awfully hard, teaching 49 first graders.
Right.
But I made it, and I stayed there for 13 years.
Okay. We're probably talking, that's probably 57, right? Is that when it was? Because 47 you were at Lincoln, right?
Yes, 45. I went from 45 to 51, and it closed in 51.
Then you subbed for 2 years in
I
Bidwell.
substituted at Bidwell, and then I went to Lawrence County. Well, the school was located in Black Fork,
Okay.
but it was in Lawrence County.
Let's talk about some of your memories of teaching in Lincoln School. How were your students?
Oh, my students were really good. When I started there, I was fresh out of college, and it was also a learning experience for me. I was young, and I was, in fact, I was the youngest teacher there because there was three other teachers. Isabel Scott was there, and she had been there teaching first and second grade for many years when I came. Mr. George Gilmore had fifth and sixth grade, and he was an older teacher. And then upstairs there was a principal who had seventh and eighth grade, and that time that was William Browning, and he came from Springfield, and he stayed there 3 years at that time, was principal and a teacher. Then after he left, William Smith came, and he was a principal and a teacher for 7th and 8th grade. And at that time, we taught 1 year. He was principal for 1 year, and then that's when, in 51, it was closed. Lincoln was closed. But I had a lot of memories there, the children. I had about, well, there's 10 or 12 students in each grade, 3rd grade and in the 4th grade. And that was a small class. But at the time, there were 10, I had about 20 students per room. We all had that many. And I enjoyed the students very much. At that time, everything was evolved around the school and church. There's no other organizations, and everything involved around the school and the church. If we had programs, we always took the programs to Payne Creek, especially the Christmas programs. And that's where I remember Bobette was an angel. And I think that was one of the main things that I remember that one. But she didn't get to my grade. She was an angel in the second grade. In the second grade in Miss Scott's room. But I remember a lot of little things from the students.
Now, they were good students? You're telling me they were hardworking.
Yes, they were. They had. At that time, and some of them were, well, let's go back to, I had students, and when I first came there, they said that Earl Armstrong was a little boy in third grade, and he said, they said, now, Miss Smith, he doesn't have to study. I said, well, why doesn't he have to study? And he said, all the Armstrongs are smart, and they don't have to study. But Earl was a student, but he did have to work, though. Now, the next year, I had another Armstrong, and he was Stanford. Well, he had a little more working power. He had to work more than Earl did, but he got by. But then there was a little girl named Clarissa, and she had a very good personality, and she just grinned. And when I looked up at her, I said, Clarissa, do you have your work done? No, but I'm doing it. And so she was just a very good, and she wanted to slide by because she was an Armstrong. But at that time, when the grade cards came out in 6 weeks, Clarissa didn't have her work done. So she got a D in math. And I knew her mother especially, because her father worked away, and her mother, and I said, now, they came up through the schoolyard. I said, I know what Mrs. Armstrong is going to say. So I greeted her at my door to come in, and we had a conference, and she said, what's the matter with Clarissa's grades? And I said, well, I think she thinks because she's an Armstrong, she doesn't have to study, so she can get A's without studying. And the thing of it is that she was a very good student, but she didn't apply herself. She didn't get her work done. So the next time, when the grade cards, I said, if she can do it, she can do it. But she just doesn't apply herself. She just rather go on her name of Armstrong. Could I have a tissue, please? And then, thank you. And so Clarissa, I said, now Clarissa, your mother is very unhappy with your grades, a D, and Armstrong's doesn't make D's. So I said, well, you're going to have to get your work done if it takes all these, your free time, your recess periods, and if you get home, they go home for lunch and they come back, and you're going to have to get that work done. Well, I stayed on her, and all that time, I knew she could do it, but she just didn't. She thought she could slide by because she was an Armstrong, and she could get A's without working. Well, it didn't happen. So she worked, and so she got her grades up to a B, and her mother was happy with that. But now, that was just one example of kids, if they thought that the parents, if the children, the brothers and sisters before them could get an A without studying, they didn't have to do that either. But but she had to work too. But that was just one example of how they could get by because of their name.
Now, you went to college. What college did you go to?
I went to Rio Grande, and it was a college then, Rio Grande College. And I was a 4-year program, but I finished in 3 years by doing summer work in the summer. So I finished, but I couldn't graduate at the end of, because I had to do the summer work, and I didn't graduate until the 4th year. And I had taught 1 year at Lincoln, and then I graduated with, from Rio Grande College.
Did you student teach at Lincoln?
My student teaching, I did my student teaching at Rio Grande grade school.
Okay.
It was I had gone from Rio Grande grade school to high school, and then it was just automatically that I went to college, although I didn't know what I was going to do, because at that time black teachers had a hard time getting into the system, very hard. And the ones who did there, if they started there, they finished and retired at that time from the same school. And at that time there were one-room schools. Buckridge, I had my husband's aunts had gone there, and they kind of switched around. But and then when those one-room schools closed, were out of school. They were out of a job. But I was fortunate enough when I got out of school, out of college, and finished my work in 3 years. I had put my application in Gallipolis City Schools. That was the only available school in the system. Well, I think I did put my application in Bidwell School because they had a colored school there. I was called by Mr. Higgins, the superintendent, for an interview, and I got the job of 3rd grade and 4th grade as a teacher there. And the only reason why I was lucky enough to get that job, Jean Gilmore Norman taught there for many years in that same room, same grades. She married Mr. Norman, and he was in the military service. So they were going, as long as she was teaching, he was stationed in the States. But now when he transferred to Germany, she gave up her job, retired there, and went with him to Germany. And that's why it left a vacancy. So I was lucky enough to get that job.
Wonderful. Now,
so I stayed there for 5 years.
So the school began with the bell ringing, right?
Beg pardon?
The school began with the bell ringing.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes, yes, the bell.
There's the bell. Okay, and then afterwards you began with, we've heard already, the pledge, the prayer, this sort of thing. What was the curriculum like? Did you start with mathematics? Did you start with, let's say?
Of course, now at that time we could have prayer. We had opened the prayer with a song and a prayer, and then we started. I always had reading and math until recess time. After that, we had the language arts, spelling, and writing, and I didn't print because that was taught. The printing ended with the 2nd grade, but I have cursive writing and spelling, English, and then afternoon the curriculum went like social studies and then science, and then that took up after the recess, the last recess, and the last things were history and geography. But we crammed it all in with 2 grades now, and sometimes I had to combine the classes in order to get all this in. But
it was a challenge.
Yes.
The extracurricular activity, was there music? Was there
we had music. We had a music teacher coming in once a week, I think. Once a week, and she taught the music. And we would go upstairs where the piano was, upstairs in the auditorium up there, and I would take the classes, and I would stay there with the students until maybe it was a half an hour. We had music class, and then we'd be taken down, and then another another class would go up. But I had my second and third grade, or third and fourth grade music class upstairs, where the piano was, where the music teacher was, and she would stay. I guess she would stay all day, maybe, or at least half a day. And the classes lasted about 20 minutes, or a half an hour for music class for once a week.
And the arts, did you get drawing in there?
No,
painting?
we didn't have. We did our own art. I especially now at this time of year, we would have fall and activities, and we would do pumpkins and gourds and the things for fall. Fall and the leaves, we would color leaves and all that. Everybody had to have crayons, and it would, but we didn't have an art teacher.
Okay.
But yeah, we did our own art.
Now, do you celebrate the holidays? Did the kids dress up for Halloween? Did they?
Yeah, yes, we had Halloween parties. We would dress up, and we'd always have to have, and we had a festival at Lincoln. We had a program, and they would have a dressed up Halloweens, and we'd get prizes for the best dressed, the ugliest, the funniest, so that sort of thing.
So you...
And it would always have candy corn. We'd always treat, and everybody on the holidays we would have parties for the kids in the room. Everybody had parties. We had, and especially at Easter time, we'd have dyed Easter eggs, and maybe we'd go out on the playground. Everybody had their own time to hide the eggs, to find the eggs, and then we'd come in and celebrate to see who had the most eggs. And then we would, if somebody didn't get any egg at all, we would share with the eggs. And they were real eggs then, not plastic.
How did you feel when Lincoln School closed?
When it closed, I was sad, because I had at the 5 years that I was there, I was hired for 1 year, and the second year I was hired for 1 year. But the third year I had a 3-year contract, and at that time, when my 3 years contract was up, that's when the school closed in 1951. I was really upset. I think all the students, and especially the parents, because they wanted their own school, the parents wanted their own school. They didn't want to go downtown, just like they wanted their own church. Everything involved around the school and the church. I went back home at that time in the spring of the year. It was May, and I didn't try to get a job at that time, but I think sometime during this, I did put in an application, because the jobs weren't available. There was no jobs available unless I would go away. And at that time, I married in 1950, so I really didn't want to upset my husband's routine, and he was also a teacher, but he couldn't find a job, so he went to work at GDC. So in order to stay, he had the job, I didn't have a job. So we had to stay put where he had the job, where he worked at GDC. And that's where I started working as substitute in the fall of the year for 2 years at Bidwell Colored School. And then at the end there, I put my application in Lawrence County, and I got the job there, first grade.
Have you kept in touch with some of your students over the years? From Lincoln?
Some of the students, they usually moved away because there wasn't any jobs here. I kept in contact with several of the students. Charlene Lewis, I see her every now and then. Well, she lives in Columbus. Most of the children are gone away, moved away, especially ones here in Gallipolis. I lived at Bidwell, and I didn't keep up much, but when they come back, especially Emancipation time, it was kind of a homecoming, and then I would see them then. George Gilmore, John Gilmore, the Gilmore family, The Armstrongs, I kept up with them, and I would see them every now and then, but they'd always remember me, and I remember. But it was hard when you could see them only once a year, and sometimes you forget what they look like. You always think about them being in the second grade, or the third grade, fourth grade, but they do grow up, you know. And but I did keep in contact with most of them.
Okay. Did some go on to do some important things? Did some go on to do some important things?
Oh, yes, they did. Some of them, George Gilmore George Gilmore Jr. was very intelligent. His father was teaching there in Lincoln at the 5th and 6th grade. So he went to Howard University and graduated with honors. He was a Phi Beta Kappa member there, and he still is in that area, but he's retired now, and he was in the military there for a while, so he's did very well. Charlene Lewis is in Columbus. The Armstrongs, Gene Armstrong is my pastor. He's a pastor. He's a doctor. Dr. Armstrong is my pastor at Mount Carmel Church, and he's been there for several years. And we have a new church as of 2000, I think it was. He's made extreme good progress there in Bidwell. And now let's see. Several students, Bobette, Bobette went to Washington and married, have a job, and retired, and came back home. And now she says, because her mother's still here, and she said she has to look after her mother. And her sisters are still here, too.
Overall, it was a very positive experience.
Powerful, yes, but very good. A very good experience. Very good. And the students who did come back, usually if they go away, then they always come back home, and to renew all friendships.
How would you sum up that experience? Is it, if someone asked you, let's say, okay, tell us about Lincoln School. Why was it important? What would you tell them?
Lincoln School was important to most people because it was a community center. Everybody involved around the community, like I said, it was a community center, the church and the school. Everything at that time involved around the school and the church. And we had programs, everybody was involved in the school. And PTAs, we had PTA meetings, and even though they didn't have children, they would come to Miss Washington. Minnie Washington was one of the faithful members of Lincoln School, PTA. And she would come and assist with the summer programs, playground programs in the summertime. I don't know, I think it was just voluntary programs, but she was there overseeing the summer program at Lincoln School in the summertime. Other people would come and involved not only, well, now she was involved in the church too, but like I said, they worked together. The school and the church worked together very closely.
Any other anecdotal stories you'd like to share with us?
There's a lot of stories that it comes to mind. Like I said about Clarissa was a student that she thought she could slide by because she was an Armstrong, and she thought she didn't have to study. Charlene, that I mentioned a while ago, she had a music teacher. She had a music teacher, piano, and I could play a little bit of piano. So she would come and after school, and she would play for me. And she said, "Now is that right?" Now she was kind of a critic before she went to her regular music teacher. Um, um, I can't remember too much about the individual students, but overall, we were a very close-knit family.
Did the faculty associate with each other? Did they cooperate, develop curriculum? How did the faculty get along?
The curriculum?
How did the faculty get along developing
curriculum? The faculty was very good. Now, we worked together. Very good. Well, the first and second, Miss Scott was that was the only teacher that was in there, Isabel Scott, and we worked together with programs, and then we'd take our programs, and then Mr. Gilmore would help with it, and then the parents would help too. I remember one time we had a program where they had we had a bumblebee. I forgot the name of the program, but we had the mother, Mrs. Gilmore, had sewed yellow and black stripes on their shirts for the kids, and they looked like bumblebees. And we put the program on. And then one time we had a program. We've taken that to Washington School, and it was called Americans All. And every student in the school represented a country. And some of the boys who looked like they would put turbans on their head for an Indian from the country from India. France, they would dress up like France. Africans, and they would wear barefoot, and we would have songs from different countries. That we would work with the students like that, and the parents would always work with the children. That was just part of the family of Lincoln School. The parents were there to support the teachers in every way. When the Lincoln School closed, I went back home to Bidwell, and I substituted there for 2 years. Mr. Gilmore had a big family, so he couldn't get a job, but he went to work at Ravenswood, and that ended his career. And then we had another teacher, the principal, the last year, Bill Smith, and he went to Nelsonville, I think, in that area, where his wife's people were there, and so he didn't go back into the school system. Isabel she had a continuing contract, or some kind. Maybe it was, I don't know what it was, how many years on that contract she had, but she had the opportunity to go teaching at Maple Shade or work at a job in the office downtown. In one of the offices. So she, rather than go to Maple Shade, she took the opportunity to go work in the school office. But that canceled her contract, her teaching contract. And she didn't like that at all, and she was very disappointed that she didn't get it. She thought she could, if she was going downtown, and at the school, she would automatically move in when there was a vacancy at Washington School, but that didn't happen. They said that since she took just the office job, that was automatically canceled her certificate, her contract. So, and then after that, she worked there, I think, 1 year. And then she finished up at, for her retirement, she went to the Gallipolis Public Library. And there she finished up until her retirement there. Her retirement age, but it wasn't the same as teaching school. I was the only one that continued my teaching career. I was younger, and but I was too old to start another career. And so I did continue it. I stayed at home 2 years to substitute at Bidwell. And then I got the job at Lawrence County. and I taught there for 13 years in first grade, and until my son was born. And it took me about 30 minutes to go from Bidwell to Oak Hill and to Black Fork, 30 minutes. But my husband thought it was too far to be away from my child. So I put my application in Gallipolis City Schools and the Gallia County Schools. So I got the job at, they called me first at Gallia County. So at Bidwell, I taught 5th and 6th grade departmental work there for 2 years. And I told the principal that if there was a vacancy coming up in the first 3 grades, I would like to be considered. So after 2 years, there was a vacancy in the 2nd grade. One of the teachers had retired and resigned rather, and she went with her husband where he was transferred. And I taught there, and I finished up for about 13 years, but that ended my career. I stayed there and I taught. That was my 33rd year of teaching, so I retired at that time.
Well, it's a wonderful story.
I enjoyed my teaching very much.
And we enjoy you sharing your story with us. Thank you very much.